Welcome to Beacon of Speech. I'm Fred Hunt, that's Ted Coley. Hi, Ted Coley.
Hi, Fred.
Hey, I'm going to read off the script today. Ted always makes fun of me. He goes, don't I have it memorized? Maybe I'll move the script so it looks like I'm looking at the TV
You need
for
a
once.
teleprompter.
What? We could make our own teleprompter.
You could be like Obama and have it like you're watching a tennis match.
Yeah, okay. What is Beacon of Speech about? Selling freedom of speech to everyone. If I had a copy of the First Amendment, I would wave it in the camera. Free speech is under constant assault in America. That hurts my neck doing that. The point is, freedom of speech is under constant assault in America today. The problem is it's coming from two places it's very hard to fight. Ted, what are those two places?
Two places. Wait a minute. Political correctness?
Yes, on the left and on the right.
Corporations.
Corporations are evil. Now, me and Ted used to do predictions the first 50 episodes or so. Every week we either had a prediction or we made a prediction. And because of Fred's laziness and lack of organization, we have not done predictions very much lately. Would you say that's fair?
No, it's like a dying art.
So when we started, I put long-term predictions, and then I put them in the thing, and then I found them today. So would you like to go over a few long-term predictions that Beacon of Speech made at the beginning? Okay, this says...
How long-term are these?
I think this is from like when we first started in 2016.
Oh, wow. Well, wait a minute. No, we started before then, didn't we?
Yeah, no, 2016. It's been 2 years. We started in the fall.
I thought it was 15.
Oh, nope, you're right. It does say 15. So you're right. Okay, so...
So these might be like from the very beginning?
From the very beginning. So are you ready?
Yeah.
This prediction was made, and you're right, it was 2015. On November 5th of 2015, okay, the prediction is marijuana will not be back on the ballot due to the passage of Issue 2. Why was the prediction made? With the exception of a few libertarians, no one is doing legalization of marijuana based on principle. Ted says in 2 years, the legalization will be back on the ballot.
I did say that?
Ted said that. Joe Kaufman says legalization of marijuana will be back on the ballot immediately. Well, Joe Kaufman was wrong, and for some reason I don't have mine written down. And it was to be revealed in November of 2016, and I lost it. But everywhere is legalizing marijuana. So in the year 2015, you said give it 2 years, and it was going to be back on the ballot. And sure enough, you were spot on. Now, even though it is not legal in Ohio, correct, marijuana?
I guess.
It's even in the next year or two, it will be legal. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, are you saying that's probably what's going to happen?
Yes. Because everybody
does that mean recreational?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? We just said marijuana in general.
Are you talking about medicinal or?
We did not make a distinction when we made the prediction. So you just said in 2 years it would be legal, that they would have it back on the ballot. And you're more or less right, because that takes you November of 2017, and that's when, isn't that when Colorado and Washington made it legal? Is that correct?
I think so. It might have been even earlier than that.
But states are starting to legalize it, and they want to bring it back to the Ohio ballot. Right now, I think you can get medical marijuana. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but you cannot get recreational marijuana. So since we didn't make the separation, we're going to say you were right. Within 2 years, you were right. So
and
good
you
job,
don't have your prediction, yours on that.
No, it just has me and Joe. I don't know why I didn't do it. But I want to bring something up, and we talked about it. Nobody wants to legalize marijuana because it's the right thing to do. Before we even started, the last thing Ted Coley said to me, he said this sentence to me, and then I hit the Beacon of Speech button. Ted says, no matter what you do in America, follow the money. And same thing with legalization of marijuana. Nobody wants to do it because they want everybody smoking pot. What they want to do is make marijuana and tax it, and then you don't have to raise your taxes on anything else because now all the marijuana, all the potheads are paying the taxes. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So all they're doing is taking the tax shell.
So all these people,
and they're moving it to the other tax shell.
So all these people in the past who are probably so against it out of principle, like it's going to drive down this and blah blah blah.
Right.
Now, if they're faced with the threat of having their taxes raised, they're like, well, you know what? Let's hold on a minute. Maybe it would be a good idea. You know what?
Right, exactly.
So it's like, wait, if this is going to stop my taxes from being raised,
Now
let those potheads fund everything.
Right. And there are a very few principled people where they're like, marijuana helps my glaucoma. Okay? Nobody cares about grandma's glaucoma in America. They just don't. Okay? They're like, take your glaucoma medicine. But if they can tax the glaucoma medicine and the glaucoma medicine's marijuana, then they're all for it. You see what I'm saying? They don't care about grandma's poor eyesight based on principle. And I shouldn't say grandma, I'll say grandpa's poor eyesight, because I know an old man, I won't say his name, he got glaucoma because he took too much Viagra, and it was a side effect of Viagra. And he got glaucoma, and they're like, well, he needed to take the marijuana for his glaucoma. It's like, well, why? How'd you get glaucoma? And he's like, well, I took too much Viagra. Why were you taking too much Viagra for? Every medicine, and me and my wife were talking about this week, every medicine, for everything it cures, there's always a side effect. That, do you have to live with that? And in cancer, you know, they cured, my wife had cancer, and they cured her cancer with radiation. And then when you do the research, you see that the radiation causes other types of cancer later on in your life.
Yeah.
So you might have a cancer, and then they're like, oh, we're going to treat that cancer. And then 5 years later, next thing you know, you got a worse cancer, and you're like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
And you don't know whether it's from the first cancer, or if it's from the first cancer spread, or if it's from the radiation from the first cancer. You're getting cancer from the treatment of cancer. You see what I'm saying? It's a vicious circle.
The bottom line is nobody's going to get out of this life alive.
No, and you're absolutely right. And everybody makes rules for the other guy. They don't want to make rules for themselves. And
so all you're doing with anything when you're treating stuff like that is you're just buying time.
Buying time. And that's why once you hit, like, my grandfather, he's passed away. I want to say he was 86 years old. And they said he had prostate cancer and he had leukemia.
Wow.
And they said, get your affairs in order, right? And my grandfather said, oh no, I'm going to fight it. I have a very treatable form of leukemia, and I have a very treatable form of prostate cancer. I want to fight it. And they're like, you're going to have a miserable last 4 or 5 years. You know, I don't care. I got a girlfriend. Not you. You're not a girlfriend. But he said, I have a girlfriend. I want to live. And the doctors are like, okay, well, we'll do the treatments, right? And so he did the treatments. And instead of dying at 87, you know, at 86, they said, get your affairs in order. You got another year. He goes, I want to do the treatment. And he lived to 90. Mm-hmm. So he had 3 years of misery. And then his girlfriend's children didn't like driving her to the nursing home where he was at, so he didn't get to see her anyhow, because he couldn't drive and pick her up because he was in a nursing home. You see what I'm saying? So he bought 3 years of misery where he'd call his girlfriend on the phone, and her kids treated her like a 13-year-old girl. You can't talk to that old man today.
It is funny, like, when people get to be a certain age, like, old.
Yeah.
It's like they become like kids again.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like
even in the way that they're treated.
Yeah. Well, and I always felt bad for my grandfather. I'm like, if my grandfather wants to have a girlfriend, they're like, it's not that easy. Somebody's got to drive her to his house, or we got to drive him to her house. We don't have a time to drive grandpa to his girlfriend's house. It's like, oh. Now I have a different grandfather who's still alive, so we won't talk about him. But the grandfather who's deceased, okay, I remember him. I want to live. Me and her, we got a long life together. I'm like, oh, no, you don't. And I love my grandfather very much, but he was acting like a teenage boy. He really was.
Yeah.
And like I said, I know when I was 15, I love her. She's my girlfriend. And they're like, Fred, you're 15. You're a dumbass. You know, puppy love or whatever you want to say it.
Nah, I was the same way.
Yeah. So I'm not picking on my grandfather. I'm just saying they treated him like a teenager, and not like an 18-year-old, like a 14-year-old. Okay, we're not driving you. If we drive you to your girlfriend's house, you know what you're going to want to do with that girl? And it's like, yeah, that's why he wants to go over there. I'm an adult.
Was that your mom's dad?
Yeah, my mom's dad. And like I said, he was a great guy. He worked his whole life for the gas company. He retired. He raised a good solid family. Everything he did right. But after my grandma died, and he didn't kill her. She died in natural causes. You know, she was like 85 when she died. He's like, I get a few more years of, you know, and he's like, I'm going to cash in. This is my new girlfriend. And, you know, when that girl dies, there's another one right over there. There's a whole nursing home full of them. And like I said, I'm like, oh, you know, you got to draw certain lines. But, you know, in my situation, I might do the same thing. You know, if my wife is watching this, she's like, no, you're going to die in that nursing home alone. There'll be no second wives for you. I know Ted's like, you didn't know that's what we're going to talk about today. No. I didn't know because we didn't look at the predictions. The whole point was medical marijuana. You were ahead of the curve. Now, Joe Kaufman, I think he might have had ulterior motives. But we know that he does not do pot presently because he gets drug tested at work. But I think that he wouldn't mind doing pot. But when it came to you, I think you saw what was coming. I think you could read tea leaves. That marijuana was eventually going to get legalized. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. This was for... I read a magazine called New Noise Magazine. It's a music magazine, and they have a whole bunch of brand new bands, okay? And New Noise Magazine is one of my favorite things to read for young and upcoming bands. Well, nobody writes about young and upcoming bands anymore, right? Everybody writes about the Eagles, and they're coming with their $200 tickets, right? So I made a prediction. This is a short one, so we'll knock this off. In October of 2015, I predicted that there would be no more New Noise Magazine. And why was it made? I put, because I like unpopular things, and I said I should open this in October of 2017. And like I said, we accidentally shuffled these into the wrong place. New Noise Magazine does exist.
And you said it would not.
And I said it would not, so I'm glad it still exists. But, you know, I'm on Facebook and I see a post on CNN and it says like 2 million people, you know, read it, right? And it was shared by 1,000 people. I go to New Noise Magazine and they're like, listen to the new band, you know, the Shaky Table Legs, right? Listen to the Shaky Table Legs. And then you go and look and you see that only one person like opened up the story. And it's like me. And then you go to the Shaky Table Legs YouTube page and it says how many views it has on it, right? Right on the thing, just like ours says how many views are watching us. And the Shaky Table Legs, it'll be like 8 people looked at this video. And I'm like, people are not reacting to New Noise Magazine like they should. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I should make another prediction and see if it lasts one more year. Before I put this away, this is what I wanted to talk about, and before I forgot. Things that would not exist. One of our prediction shows, we said Toys R Us would go out of business. You remember that?
We did say that?
I think I said that Sears was going out of business, and I think you said Toys R Us is going out of business. I don't remember, because I didn't write that one down.
Wow.
And Toys R Us said they're going out of business this week. Now, I want to talk about the Toys R Us business plan with you because they are going out of business. And why are they going out of business, Ted Coley?
I assume because online shopping.
Okay.
People don't. I think people still buy toys,
mm-hmm.
but they probably buy them in different ways.
Okay.
I'm assuming. That's just
no. We're gonna flesh this out. Okay. Toys R Us. Why did they close? Okay. You say online. That's a good guess. I asked my wife. I said, why do you think they went out of business? Right? And she said, because I can go to Toys R Us and see a toy for $40 and then get back in my car, drive across the street to Walmart, and buy the same toy for $22.
Yeah.
And she said, why in the world would I even go to Toys R Us? Because I can save gas and just go to Walmart, pay, 40% less, and then pick up groceries while I'm there.
Yep.
Okay? Now, that's why my wife said, so you say online shopping, and you say online shopping, and my wife says cost. They interviewed the CEO. They said, your company is dying. Why did you let the company die? And what did the CEO say?
It was the filthy employees dragging the company down.
Very close. Basically what he said is in the year 2005, they declared bankruptcy. And instead of declaring bankrupt, and I don't remember the nuts and bolts of it, so forgive
That's
me.
a long time ago.
Instead of declaring bankruptcy 1, they declared bankruptcy 7. Does that make sense? And they were saddled with crippling debt. And they said for 10 years, they would not approve any capital improvements to any of their stores. They said the stores were literally crumbling.
When you say they, do you mean like the government? Or
No, the Toys R Us did not approve any, all the money they made.
What, like the board or?
Yeah. All that money turned around and went to pay off the crippling debt.
Yeah.
And, of course, pay CEOs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My wife briefly worked at Toys R Us a couple of years ago for some extra money. And she said it was run so backwards. And because they stopped giving out raises. And again, the employees weren't taking pride. The employees, besides selling toys, they were not fixing the pipes or painting. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it's so he's like, we didn't do any capital improvements. And the employees they stood by while the stores deteriorated. Mm-hmm. And it's well, the employee's job is to sell the toys, right? And he made it sound like it wasn't his fault at all. Mm-hmm. It was the crippling debt. It was the stores falling apart. And even he admitted, he goes, in hindsight, we probably should have spent some money on infrastructure, right?
There's that word.
Yeah. And the whole thing is he's like, well, back and forth. Now all their employees, none of them are getting money. They're all losing their jobs. But this guy probably has a giant golden parachute, right?
He was the CEO?
CEO of Toys R Us. And he said, in hindsight, we got a bad deal from the bankruptcy. I'm like, you're going to blame a bankruptcy 10 years ago. He's like, well, there's other things too. There's online shopping, like you said. But, again, there's something to be said for kids going in a toy store. Kids... Take the kid to toys. I want toys, right? Other toy stores exist. The guy basically said it wasn't his fault. It was the employee's fault and the debt restructuring and the crumbling buildings.
Mm-hmm. So why have him as CEO then if nothing is under his control? Well,
but that's the whole thing. When you're reading the story, you're like, no, you went bankrupt because you were in charge. He's like, no, it was the crippling debt. It wasn't me. I did the best I could. We had a good vision. We gave it the good old college try. How many times?
So basically, he's the type of guy who when things are going well, it's because of him.
Right.
And when they're not, it's because of everybody else.
Ted, you don't understand the crippling debt that they were saddled with. And again, they closed some stores, the blah, blah, blah. But I could not get over when he said that, he goes, even I admit the stores were kind of crumbling and falling apart. It's like, they fell apart under your watch, but I had to pay the crippling debt. It's like, how many times have airlines been come out of bankruptcy? You know what I mean? They're bankrupt and then they're airlines and then they, charge back up.
Wouldn't you just once like to see a guy like that say, you know what, I must not have done a good job?
No, he did not say that. He did not say that. And again, they're interviewing him, and he's like, oh, we got a rotten deal, A, B, and C, but I did the very best I could. It's like, if you did the very best you could, you wouldn't be closing, right? Because toys did not go away. After today, kids are still going to want toys. Would you say that's fair?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the Pony Express where they're like, well, the Telegraph put us out of business. There's still toys to be had. And like I said, you can say that Walmart drove them out. And I would agree with that too, because, Walmart has a better distribution center, better stream of systems, however you want to put it.
So when you say like the CEO's main job is to make sure the business keeps going.
Yes. And that's why I got so angry at our last job. We knew a boss, we won't name him, but he thought that money came from a magical spigot and that as long as he did everything he was told, he would keep getting paid even if he had to lay off every single employee. Like, he didn't understand that if the business didn't grow, one day he wouldn't have a job. And I think the CEO of Toys R Us kind of had the same thing, where he's like, well, we'll just keep going and it'll magically turn around. Well, no, you've got to try and drive sales. Well, no, here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep jacking up prices higher and higher, right, to make up our lost revenue.
Yeah.
And every time they would jack up prices, one more person like my wife would go to Walmart. And they're like, oh, well, somebody else went to Walmart. We're going to make the prices even higher to catch the margins that we're losing.
Yeah.
And then they price themselves out of the thing, and they're like, it's not our fault. Well, yeah, you lost. And the thing is, they closed all the Babies R Us too.
How long is Toys R Us? How long have they
I think
been
they
around?
said 60 years.
60 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
And KB Toys just went out of business a couple of years ago.
Now, do you remember Children's Palace?
Yes.
Was that a local thing, or was that?
No, I think that was
countrywide?
like I think it was like a subsidiary of KB or some other company that was bigger. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
And then they sold that off. Don't get me wrong, toy stores, they're going the way of the dinosaur. Okay? But Toys R Us also had Babies R Us. Are people still having babies, Ted?
Mm-hmm.
And again, you could say, well, you could go to Walmart and get it at half the price. Why would you go to Babies R Us? Well, then that goes back to, why is Babies R Us twice the price? Well, we raised our prices. I remember going to Toys R Us, and I never thought there was like magical service where they were doing, like, their service was so good that they're like, oh, well, the service is so good. Why would we go to Walmart? The service at Toys R Us is so good. The service was just as crappy at Toys R Us as it was at Walmart.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what are you paying for then? Well, we're trying to pay for crippling debt! We had another prediction, because I knew the new noise. Oh, geez. You'll get a kick out of this one. You are going to laugh really hard. You'll get a good laugh out of this. On January 7th of 2016, the end of the 2016 season, we had a quarterback who was a drug addict
Manziel.
and beat his girlfriend, right? Me and you could not have predicted what would happen to this drug addict quarterback, okay? January of 2016, it says in January of 2018, okay?
Yeah.
The prediction is, Fred said Johnny Manziel will be in the CFL.
Oh.
Okay? Why was the prediction made? And everybody knows about Johnny Manziel's problems. Okay? Ted says, and you were way off, so I'm going to laugh at you. You ready? Ted says Johnny Manziel will be on the Dallas roster. Romo might be done.
Wow.
Now, first of all, we'll start with me, and then we'll go to you. Okay? Johnny Manziel washed out of the NFL because he was a drug addict, right? And they came out and they said his migraines was him being hungover. He was drinking at halftime. Every bad thing that Johnny Manziel could do, he was doing. And he said it didn't help that he was with the Browns. And it didn't matter. He was an addict, right? Last year, he did not play in the NFL, right? And Fred pounded his fist on the table. Go to the CFL. Go to the CFL. I might have the wrong team, so forgive me, but I think it was the Ottawa Rough Riders in the CFL offered Johnny Manziel a contract in January of 2018 when we should have opened it. And what did Johnny Manziel say?
No, I'm going to hold out for
He said, no, I am going to hold out.
more money.
No. Well, and that's one of the things. They offered him $1 million to go to the CFL. $1 million.
A year or?
Yes. And he says, I'm going to hold out. His dream is not to play in the CFL. His dream is to play in the NFL. Where is Johnny Manziel going to play in the spring? Now, this is a trick question. You might not know this.
Where is he going to play in the spring? I don't know.
Vince McMahon started the XFL version 2.0, and that starts in the spring of 2019, and he's setting up the parameters, the cities, the stadiums, and everything, right? And he goes, I'm going to beat the NFL.
Living S out of...
Well, Vince McMahon said, this is what's going to happen. My players, and again, it's all a pub grab, my players are going to kneel for the anthem. And I'm sorry, not kneel for the... My players are going to stand for the anthem. They won't kneel for the anthem. And, yeah, I know.
It still won't work.
And when the flag is up, they will cross their hearts and they will sing for the anthem. And if the players are criminals, we're not going to let them in the XFL, even though he lets criminals in the WWE. Okay? And he goes, we're going to have fun, and it's going to be about old school football. Right? Now, the NFL said, after he said this, the NFL came out and said, oh, no, don't watch the XFL. We're going to have our own spring league, and it's going to be like AAA football. You know, like, because everybody loves minor league baseball. So we're going to have minor league football, and it's going to be a development league for the NFL. Did you know this?
No.
And our first signee for the new spring football league in the spring of 2018 is
Johnny Manziel.
Johnny Manziel. Come watch Johnny Manziel rehab in spring NFL.
Come watch Johnny Manziel dry out.
Yeah, come watch Johnny Manziel. He throws a touchdown. He's shaking on the ground. He's like, I need a drink. Right? That's good TV. Right? Did you know there was a new spring football league?
No.
Yes, they're calling it Spring NFL, and they said...
Well, see, you know what they should... You know what Johnny Manziel really should have done? He should have done like a reality show.
Well, he did have a reality show.
Oh, he did?
He had signed a contract for a reality show, and then something happened. And again, I don't know the nuts and bolts of it, but either the production company pulled out or Johnny Manziel pulled out because he did not want to lose his $1 million contract going to spring NFL. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it would have been good for him to, you know, for them to follow him like in rehab. I don't know if he went to rehab again.
He did. He did. And then he's like, you know what, I'm ready to play.
You know, have him like in, you know, counseling and like screaming.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's a jerk.
Yeah. Well, who was the gay linebacker who he came out and said he was gay, and then instead of drafting him in the 3rd round, they drafted him like in the 7th round. His last name was Sam, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
And
it wasn't Son of Sam.
No, it wasn't someone Sam. It was like Emmanuel Sam or something.
Yeah.
But I remember after he washed out of the NFL, he said he was going to do a reality show with his boyfriend and show, you know, gays can play in the NFL too, which... Since the beginning of time, they've been playing in the NFL. It's just they haven't outed themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the NFL said, if you do this reality show, you won't be coming back to, you know, because we don't want to be put in a bad light. And again, the NFL strong arms are, yeah, I know. The NFL strong arms their way through everything. So all of a sudden, Johnny Manziel is the marquee name in spring NFL. And they're like
the NFL is so pure.
Yeah. And, well, that's the whole thing. After the XFL made their announcement, NFL's like, we've been researching this for 10 years. And it's just a coincidence we're going to start it right before the XFL starts. So I don't believe them for a second. Okay?
The NFL is the ultimate corporation.
Oh, yeah. It is. We want you. We're done with you, out you door.
The Eagles should figure out a way to hook up with the NFL.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Eagles, the band, not the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, no, because they're both like the best corporations.
Now, the reason that I said you second is because I almost was right. Okay? Johnny Manziel did get offered a contract and he turned it down. Okay? You said he would be on the Dallas roster. You do not know.
You keep going back to that.
Oh, no. So you said you didn't know if Romo was still going to be playing. Tony Romo, after the 2016 season, he broke his back. Is that correct?
I know he had a lot of back problems.
And it was like the second time he broke his back. It wasn't even the first time.
I remember watching one game where he was hurt, and one of the announcers said that he was walking like Fred Sanford.
But in 2017, they drafted Dax Prescott?
Dak Prescott.
Dax Prescott. And he did probably one of the best jobs of any rookie.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the year, you didn't even hear Tony Romo's name anymore. Now, Tony Romo retired at the beginning of the year, correct?
Yeah, because he's been announcing.
Right. But Tony Romo, you know how with Brett Favre, they're like, come back, come back, come back. You don't hear anybody saying Tony Romo come back because he broke his back twice.
Yeah.
So you were wrong about Manziel being on the Dallas roster, but you were 100% right when you said you don't even know if Romo's going to be in the league because he is out of the league.
Yeah.
He is out of the league and he's been announcing for a year. So even though I was half right on the CFL part, you were half right on the would Romo even be playing part.
Yeah. Where did Kaiser end up going?
Kaiser, what happened is the Browns, let's see if we got this right. The Browns are going to draft a quarterback number 1, and that's what they said they're going to do. We're going to draft a quarterback number 1, we're going to draft a quarterback number 1, right? Then they signed Tyrod Taylor. Do you know how long Tyrod Taylor's contract is?
I'll say 2 years.
1 year.
1 year.
Basically, Tyrod Taylor is betting on himself. If he turns it around, they're going to franchise tag him. And if he gets a franchise tag, he has to get paid as one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, which means he'll get a pay raise to $20-some million.
Do you think Tyrod Taylor is going to work out?
No, I don't. But I could be wrong, okay? What they did is they brought in Tyrod Taylor, betting on Tyrod Taylor that he's going to be so hungry that he's going to at least go 8-8, and then somebody's going to want to sign him, and then the guy that they draft will be ready. Okay? Now, that still leaves Kaiser in the mix. Green Bay called, and they said when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, their backup quarterback, Brett Hundley, am I saying it right?
Oh, I don't know.
He did horrible. So they're looking for a young quarterback, not to replace Aaron Rodgers, but to be an emergency backup for 3 or 4 years who can win games off the bench and grow.
Mm-hmm.
So they traded for Kaiser. So Kaiser is now the backup.
So he's in Green Bay.
Right. And then Brett Hundley or whoever. So there's 3 quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers, and they're looking for backups, right? Kaiser and Hundley. And then Green Bay signed another quarterback this week, so now they have 4 quarterbacks. So Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback, but you don't know who the 2 quarterback is or the 3 quarterback, and you assume they're going to cut Hundley. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And he's a young guy. So going into next year, the Browns will be Tyrod 1. 2 is going to be whoever they draft at number 1. And then 3... they don't know if they're going to sign a veteran or if they're going to let, like, Kevin Hogan be the 3rd string. He was a
Hogan.
Yeah, Hogan! I kind of like Kevin Hogan, but what was he, the 4th-string quarterback? He only played, like, 2 games in his whole career.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to hang on to Kevin Hogan. But Tyrod Taylor and the young guy. But some people say they might cut Hogan and have, like, an old guy come in, like a 37-year-old. Right? For all we know, it could be Romo. right? And we need a backup quarterback in case Tyrod Taylor gets hurt.
Maybe it'll be McCown again.
McCown signed with the Jets.
How old is he? Like 40 now?
He was 38, so he might be 39. So there's some other stuff I want to talk about in the news. So I figured you'd get a kick out of your prediction. Because you were right about Romo. Romo's done.
Yeah, I mean, because I think Romo's going to be 38.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if he does come back, it's like...
Oh, I can't imagine he's coming back now. Tony Romo likes cashing checks and talking about how much that guy sucks instead of how much, people are saying he sucks. You know what I mean? Okay, 2 weeks ago, or was it 3 weeks ago, there was a shooting in Parkland, Florida. And since then, gun control has been on the front burners of every media outlet, defending the Second Amendment. We need gun control, depending on what your point of view is. There seems to be very little middle ground, okay? And this came out, and this story came out on The Blaze, and it made me feel bad for me, and it made me feel bad for you, okay? Now, this week, they had the national walkouts, and at Shaker Heights High School in Ohio, very liberal, right? The teachers said, please walk out, right? Walk out. We're going to support the kids in Parkland, and the whole school walked out, right? And would you say Shaker Heights, University Heights, that's all very liberal right in there?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And they said, we need gun control. Students, we encourage you to walk out of class, and the whole school walked out, right? And I remember reading about it on clevelandlariat.com. I'm like, well, that doesn't surprise me because they're very liberal. And then they said school districts on the west side and out in the country where they're more conservative, they said, you walk out, we're going to give you detentions, right? My kid, I won't say her name, but at her school, they had the national walkout. And I don't know if I told you this story or not, so you'll get my daughter,
mm-hmm.
You know what she looks like. They said, now is the time, 1 o'clock or whatever the time is, we are walking out. And the teachers all went to the doors, and they crossed their arms, and they said, you can walk out, and as soon as you walk out, you're getting a detention for walking out.
Where was this?
At North Ridgeville.
Wow.
And my daughter's like, well, I'm not going to walk out, because why would I walk out? I'm just walking to my next class, right? And the teachers, they couldn't touch anybody. They just crossed arms and say, you walk out, you get a detention, right? And I guess about 20 or 30 kids said, no, we're walking out. We're staying with Parkland. And they're like, okay, knock yourself out. You have a Saturday detention. And they said, we don't care. We care that much. Okay? They walked out. And so out of 500 students, like 30 walked out.
At North Ridgeville.
At North Ridgeville. Now, I get an email the next day. They said, no matter what the rumors are, we gave out no suspensions for students walking out. Well, technically, they're right because they didn't suspend them, right? They just said you get detention because you're leaving class. No matter what the cause is, whether you're against guns or the rainforest or starving children in Africa, no matter what you're against, you cannot walk out of school. That was their stand, okay? It doesn't matter that it's a national walkout day. You cannot walk out. So they said, this is our position. Nobody was suspended. Anybody who walked out has an unexcused absence, which gives you a detention, no matter what the unexcused absence was. So they covered all their bases as a district. And I heard other districts, now this is a rumor, that other districts locked the doors and basically had a lockdown, but that's unsubstantiated, and that did not happen in North Ridgeville. And they said, nobody's leaving. This is school. You don't be walking out in the middle. Okay? Some schools tried to meet halfway, and this is where me and you come in. Now, I showed you the picture of poor Jake the Dope. Okay? I'm not going to say his last name. I want you to look it up. But you looked at a picture of him. He looked like a dopey 15-year-old. Okay? Right?
Mm-hmm.
He went to Hilliard Davidson. Hilliard Davidson tried to take into account both sides.
Where is that?
I guess it's in Hilliard, but I think Hilliard's over by Youngstown. Hilliard Davidson says we want to respect the rights of all our students. So half the students said we are walking out, and they said, you know what, we support your freedom of speech to walk out. They walked out with half the teachers. The other half said, we support the Second Amendment. We're for gun rights. And they said, okay, you kids walk to the cafeteria. I'm sorry, not the cafeteria, the gymnasium, and you're all for gun rights, right? Now, Jake the Dope, who goes to Hilliard Davidson, okay? And the reason I call him a dope because he looked like me, he looked like you. Could have been us when we were 15. What did Jake do, Ted Coley?
He sat at his desk and didn't do anything?
Jake sat at his desk. He says, I don't feel like protesting. And those kids in the gymnasium, they just want to shoot up the school themselves. I'm going to sit here, and I'm not in either camp.
Yeah, that would have been me.
So the principal walks down the hall, looks in the room. Oh, look, there's Jake. Jake, what are you doing here unchaperoned? And he said, listen.
It was just him? There was
just Jake, nobody else. And so he goes, those kids...
So Jake doesn't have any friends either?
I don't think... Well, did it look like he had any friends in the picture? So Jake goes... He goes, listen, those kids in the gymnasium are crazy, and I don't agree with walking out of school. There has to be some middle ground in America. He goes, so I'm just going to sit here. I'll wait for everybody to come back.
And the thing is that it sounds like I'm making fun of him, but I'm really not. Because I am that kid, probably.
I'm making fun of that kid because that kid is me.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's why we do Beacon of Speech. We are Jake.
So, Jake, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, too. But we are Jake.
I'm sorry for everything Fred said.
So Jake sits in class. Principal walks in. What are you doing here? And he explains what I just said. He goes, you're suspended. And they're like, why am I suspended? I'm the only...
Everything that's going on, yeah. And he's suspended.
I'm the only one in class. I'm the only kid in the whole goddamn school.
Make an example out of the guy who's not doing anything wrong.
I'm the only kid in the goddamn school who's in class like he's supposed to be.
They suspend Gandhi.
Yeah. And they said, listen, you don't listen very good, Jake, which again reminds me of me and you. You are in this classroom unchaperoned. And they said, you cannot be in the school building unchaperoned, so you're suspended for not listening to teachers' orders. You either had to pick that group or you had to pick that group. There was no third group where you get to sit in the classroom and wait for the other two groups.
What a joke.
Yeah. So the poor kid, and then it hits I saw it on two different places, but I remember seeing it on the Blaze first. And the Blaze said, this is unbelievable. This is what America comes to. Because you either have to be in that group or you're in that group. You cannot be a free thinker anymore in America. And that's poor Jake. We're picking on him.
The thing is that it wasn't like the American thing, rugged individualism.
Yeah, so poor Jake. And again, he was the only one where he was supposed to be. Where are you supposed to be at 1:15 or 1 o'clock or whatever? You're supposed to be in class. What are you doing in class? What am I doing in class? It's a school day, and I'm in my class. And they're like, Jake, you're a smart aleck.
It's like 1984 or something,
And that's the whole thing. It's like, I'm sure Jake can function. He wasn't doing anything bad. He's just literally sitting there like a lump.
I hope Jake becomes a billionaire.
But so we're picking on Jake, but we are Jake because we talk to people and they're like, well, why aren't you a Republican? They're the best people in the whole world. And then we talk to other people, they're like, well, if you're not a liberal, you don't understand. You're not smart enough. You must not understand what's going on. I'm like, no, my problem is I think you both suck. Okay? Neither one of you look in the mirror, and the only thing you can see is what's bad about that other guy over there.
Yeah.
You can't see anything bad in the mirror. So, like you said, we're making fun of Jake, but we are Jake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I could see myself doing that too. I'd be like, you know what, I'm not going outside. I'm just going to sit here and, do...
Yeah, I think the only difference would have been, like, with me, is that I probably would have had two other people with me, who were like me.
Yeah. Oh, no, that didn't bother. When I was a kid, I remember sitting alone and doing stuff. I remember being in, study hall and, being in the corner desk and two tables, nobody else is sitting there. and I'm just sitting there by myself.
Because I'm thinking, for some reason, I'm thinking of myself like in 11th grade, and it would have been me and Mike and Scott, if you're out there.
Mike and Scott, shout out to Mike and Scott. Yeah. So, but the point of the story is that I can't say this enough. The poor kid, now he's in trouble. Now he has to explain it. And his parents are probably like, listen, why are you suspending our kid? And they're like, listen, we have rules. We can't have unchaperoned kids in a school. It's like, but listen, we sent our kid to school and you left him alone. My son Jake did not run down the hallway and hide in the janitor's room. He sat in class. Everybody went one way. Everybody went the other way. Nobody stayed in class. We told him he couldn't stay in class. Well, that's where he's supposed to be. Yeah. And that's what America's come down to. I mean, Jake is the symbol of America today. Right? And that's probably why nobody watches Making a Speech, because we're Jake. And they're like, Ted Coley, how hard is it for you? You either go outside with the protesters, or you go into the thing. And don't get me wrong. I agree 100% that you have to defend the Second Amendment. Okay? But there's a lot of people who defend the Second Amendment who are maniacs. Okay? Now, we defend the Second Amendment in the abstract, okay? It's in the Constitution. You have to defend it, okay? But we do not hang around with any of the gun craze people who are like, look at my AK-15! Right? And you know people like that who love their guns and they carry it around wherever. I got 3 of them in my trunk. You want to see it? No, I don't want to see your AR-15 or AK, whatever. Your Kalashnikov or...
I was just watching some of Blazing Saddles before you came over. You know that movie.
Yeah.
And then when they were watching, who was it, Madeline Kahn doing the, like, it wasn't like a striptease, but she was dancing around.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, they were all firing their
guns. They're all shooting their guns. Yeah, there's people like that who love their guns too much. And they have rights to love their guns too much, but that doesn't mean I want to hang around with them and talk guns. How often, I'm going to be honest with you, Ted. Last week we went off format and we talked about the auto show, and I could tell I was grinding it into the dirt. By the end, you were done talking about cars, right? Would you say that's fair?
Mm-hmm.
How many episodes have we done where we're going to talk about handguns today, handguns versus semi-automatic weapons, and then we take guns, we're like, oh, you know what, this one shoots faster than the other one, and this has... We don't talk about guns that way here. We talk about you have the right to have a gun. We don't talk about how awesome they are, and we don't have little gun shows here at Making a Speech. We just don't do it.
Mm.
And so that poor kid probably knew kids who love guns too much. I don't want to hang out with them. Okay? And just because they have the right to have a gun doesn't mean I have to hang out with them.
So out of this whole thing, Jake is the only person who got in trouble.
Jake is the only one who got in trouble because everybody who stayed inside in the gymnasium, they had teachers in the gymnasium, and then they sent teachers out to be with the protesters. Jake was the only one without a teacher. So they said Jake was a bad... and they got him not only for being a bad listener, they said he didn't follow instructions, you can't be unchaperoned, and they weren't like cool to Jake. You know what I mean? Where they're like, oh, it's just Jake. You know, he's a dopey kid. We'll be nice to him. No, they're like, okay, you didn't follow rules.
So they suspended him?
Yeah.
For how long?
Oh, that I didn't see. We could look it up. But they said that, and they kept going back to, he did not listen. He did not listen to instructions. And I hate to pick on him because, again, it's me. But they show the picture in the Blaze, and he's got like that dirty afro hair, right? And his face was like this. Right? And the kid, like I said, I feel bad making fun of him. But it was us. Yeah. It was a dorky teenager. Yep. You know, I was not the guy that all the girls were like, oh, look, there's Fred Hunt. Oh. You know, I was one of the girls who were like, oh, Fred Hunt. Oh. Right? And I'm sure that's how the girls treat poor Jake, too. I hope Jake doesn't watch his webcast. He'd be like, oh, my God, I'm going to be 45 years old doing a webcast and 3 people watch. Maybe I'll kill myself. Jake, don't kill yourself. It gets better. Okay? Yeah, that's like maybe it gets better. But
well, no, the accurate thing is to say you get used to it.
Yeah, well, but that's the whole thing. In life, You're either in our group or
It
you're in their
it
group.
doesn't get better. You just get like
Yeah.
used to it.
Yeah, thanks. You go off myself tonight. But so had you heard the story of Jake this week?
I heard something, but I didn't know like the details.
Yeah. So again, I can only go by what my daughter said, and I know she's only in 9th grade, so it's only probably semi-accurate. But I believe, I think it was the day before the walkout, they had a choir concert for my other kid, and they were singing like the Marine theme song and the Armed Forces theme song. So we are not a liberal community, I would say. You know what I mean?
North Ridgeville?
Yeah. And I'm not saying they're conservative. I'm saying it's kind of towards the country where it's,
Yeah.
love your gun, love your country type country. So, and that's fine. So, Ted's shaking his head. He's trying. He wants to write Jake. I mean, you know what? We always talking about celebrities, and I say I don't want to talk about celebrities. I want to talk to people like you and me. Maybe we'll try and get a hold of Jake next year because there's a kid and he's like banned guns, and so now people have been paying him. I can't remember his name, but he's everywhere saying ban guns, ban guns, ban guns.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking.
And it's like, where are you getting this money from? And how did you get 1 million followers all of a sudden? And like I said, partially, I'm jealous because I'm like, how does this kid get so popular so fast?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, okay, do you want to talk about one other thing? I want to talk about Stephen Hawking, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Hawking passed away this week. Stephen Hawking was 72 years old. Is that right? 71, 72 years old?
I thought he was 76.
Well, even if he's 76, he's in his 70s.
75, something like that.
When he was like 22 years old, they said, you have Lou Gehrig's disease, you'll be dead in 2 years. He lived 50 years longer.
Yeah. It's
right?
like, is that like extremely rare?
Very, very rare. And I even read an obituary where they said that they still don't know how he lived for 50 years. Like, they don't even know.
Now, that, he died, did he die from that, or...
I assume they died from that, but even if he didn't, he died of complications from that.
Yeah.
Because they said at the end, like, he couldn't move anything, okay? And then we're going to get a little dirty here in a second, okay? But they said that he used to be able to move his mouth or his cheek and move like a pen and aim it at letters. And that's how he could communicate, and then he couldn't move that. And then the only thing they could do to communicate is he would take his eyes and look at my eyes. And he would look at letters, like he would look at the letter A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that's how he wrote. His eyes would like point the laser to the letters. So that had to be excruciatingly slow. And, me and you talk very basic language like and the, car, desk. He's writing long, he's talking about black holes and astrophysics, so he's got to, look at a lot of letters. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the point of my story is that he is a triumph of the human spirit. Because go back to when you were 22, and they said, you have ALS, and you'd be like, oh my God. You'd be like, I'm not going to make it 2 years. And, like, you'd probably be taken over. And not just you, me too. Taken over by depression, despair. They said that his wife, right, she took care of him. And she said her career as a physicist suffered because she was taking care of him so much. Which is kind of a jerk move, writing in your autobiography, my work suffered because I had to take care of my husband. You see what I'm saying?
Now, were they together before he was diagnosed with that?
Yes. And then as he was diagnosed, they had kids. So he had 3 kids.
Yeah, I heard that.
He's starting to slide into things don't work anymore. Yeah. But then it goes back to what is working and what doesn't if he had one of his kids 2 years after the diagnosis. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you don't want to talk about it, but something had to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's be very vague. The male parts do not magically get into the female parts on their own.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Certain things have to work. Now, this is the very confusing thing.
Now, is his wife still around?
Yes.
And they were still together?
No.
Oh, okay. So they got divorced, or
Yes.
when was this?
This is where we're going. So he had three kids with his wife, and his wife took care of them 24/7, but because they were both university professors, or they both made good money,
Yeah.
they could pay for nurses. And as her career advanced and she took care of the kids, she relied on nurses to take care of Stephen more than herself. Because I'm busy, I have to take care of the kids, which I don't blame her.
Mm-hmm.
But then she wrote a biography about how hard her life was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I am 100% sure that she had a hard life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But it's not a good look writing a biography saying how hard her life was. And a lot of people do not have the facilities to hire 24-hour-a-day care for their spouse. Okay, I know somebody with who I work with. Their spouse is basically debilitated, and she has to work full-time, 2 jobs, and take care of him.
Mm-hmm.
She cannot afford 24-hour care. She just can't. Okay? So for somebody to write in a book, that's a bad look. Stephen Hawking divorced his wife after 20 or 25 years of marriage, and then he proposed to one of his nurses. And she said, "Yes, I love you, Stephen. You are a genius." Okay? Now, back to the how much money can your spouse afford? Okay? Stephen Hawking did not have a nurse. He had a team of nurses. Okay? The other nurses said that the second wife was a gold digger and called the police, and they had to investigate Stephen Hawking, and they had to ask him, "Is your second wife abusing you?" Okay? And again, this is a guy who hasn't moved in 30 years. "Is your second wife abusing you?" He said, he's looking at the board. "No, she's not abusing me." And, I'm shaking my head, but he's staring. He's staring at the NO symbols on the thing, right? They were married for 8 years, right? And I don't know why they got divorced, but they got divorced. After they got divorced, the first wife came back to Stephen and said, "Let's be friends," because there's no reason to get back with him. He's a shell of himself, right? And he's got a fleet of nurses. But she goes, "Let's be friends for the kids." And Stephen, at this point, he's 60 years old. He's like, "Yes, I would like that," right? Because you want to say, no matter who you are, whether you make no money or you're a billionaire, you want to do right by your kids, right? And he goes, "Yes, I would like that." As soon as Stephen Hawking died, she went right to the presses. "I never stopped loving Stephen," and he basically, the kids broke us up. The kids and the ex-wife plotted against us, right? And then, because they wanted to keep Stephen's fortune for himself. And I'm like, oh my God, this poor guy's been on a wheelchair for 50 years. And when Stephen Hawking died, he said the greatest mystery of the universe is what?
The greatest mystery of the universe is, I heard what he said and now I forgot.
Women.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
That's what he said?
Yeah, the greatest mystery of the universe is
so
women.
Even he, the smartest guy on earth, couldn't figure women out.
The smartest guy on earth could not figure women out. And he had women problems.
That's great.
Yes.
I love that.
And so when I'm looking at Stephen Hawking, everybody's talking about what a genius he is, right? If you said, "Fred Hunt, who's the last person on earth do you think is going to have woman problems?" I would say Stephen Hawking. He's in a wheelchair. He can't do anything. Yeah. And even if he loves women, what can you do?
Yeah.
He basically thinks about physics all day. Yeah. That wasn't the case at all. His first wife trashed him in the book. She's like, "I did not have time to take care of Stephen." And Stephen was so needy. He had Lou Gehrig's disease.
But he did say that? That's the greatest mystery?
The greatest mystery in the universe is women.
Yeah, see, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, poor, and I felt so bad for him.
See, now that makes me happy.
Well, and that's the whole thing. He said the good thing about his marriage is because he had all these nurses and his wife was working all the time or taking care of the kids all the time. He said some people would think about physics 50 or 60 hours a week, and he spent all day and all night thinking about physics.
I thought you were going to say thinking about women.
Oh, no, well, probably that too. But he didn't admit that. He goes, so he spent all his time thinking about physics, and he didn't have to worry about eating or taking care of himself or going there. They could be taking him to an event, and somebody would drive him. So he's not thinking about driving, he's thinking about physics. You see what I'm saying? And no matter where he went, he's like, physics, physics, physics. So literally, he thought more about physics than maybe anybody ever. You know what I mean? Because even Einstein, I remember Einstein having woman problems, and he had like wives and mistresses, right? And the whole thing is Einstein, you look at him and, he could do this, move his hands and move his face and, move his mouth and move his feet, right? What drove these women so crazy that they were like Stephen Hawking, that they were thinking about Stephen Hawking all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, even he didn't understand it.
Well, yeah. And again, by the time he had the second wife, he had had full-blown Lou Gehrig's for 20 years. Which again goes back to, what was going on with that second wife. Well, I loved his brain. Well, that's fine, because, maybe the woman, they talk about these women who marry prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, they just want to be married. And, they want to have a man, but they don't really want to, there's a lot of psychology to it. And it's like, I don't know. They always say the guy's on death row. That Manson had a girlfriend, even though he was 80 years old, and she was like 45.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, who are these women? Right? They were hooking up with Manson in the jailhouse, reformatory or whatever it is. Yeah, so the greatest mystery is women, Ted. You like that?
Yeah, I do.
Have I made your whole day now?
That is good.
So, rest in peace, Stephen Hawking. And I felt bad because, again, he was an agnostic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or not an agnostic. He was an atheist. And as soon as he died, some people in America, of course America, they said, he was an atheist, but now he knows God. And they were talking about, I'm like, you know what?
Oh, yeah, they didn't say that in a nice way.
Yeah, and now he realizes that he's been wrong his whole life. And it's like, you know what? Today's not the day for that. Now, when Charles Manson dies, okay, if you want to say that he was a murderer and he was a horrible person, that's fine, okay? But you shouldn't, like, when Billy Graham dies, like, George Will wrote mean things about Billy Graham. It's like, what the hell is wrong with you? He was a preacher. He's more or less a good guy.
Yeah.
And even if he was a bad guy, just wait a couple of days. I remember Mother Teresa, CNN, I even wrote on it for Beacon of Speech. They said, well, Mother Teresa was not as saintly as she was meant to be. And it's like, you know what? Now you're putting your standards on someone else. If you want to write that story in a week, it's not your place to talk about Mother Teresa the day she dies like that. And it's time and place. And
well, you know what's so funny is like the people who said that about Stephen Hawking, it's like I assume these are like Christian.
They're born again Christians in the South.
Is that really the Christian thing to do?
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, but they want to get out the message that now Stephen Hawking knows God, and they're doing their witnessing, right?
Yeah.
We're using Stephen Hawking to witness to other atheists. And that's why I'm like, you know what? That's just a jerk move. You can talk about that next week. Okay? Because nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Right? But there's some people, and I'm not, we're a freedom of speech site. If you want to say that Mother Teresa wasn't a saint, just wait a week. That's all I'm asking. Okay? And same thing with Stephen Hawking. If we're talking about him a week later. Right? And like I said, I think he's awesome. I just was surprised. I did not know he had women problems. I just didn't. I just assumed. Again, this is me. This is what I assumed. I assumed Stephen Hawking had a girlfriend or wife, right? And then when he had ALS, she stood by him, and she's like, "Well, you know what? It sucks, but we were dealt a bad hand, and that's the way life is." And that's not what happened at all.
Well, it's funny because it seems like no matter who you are, it's like there's always a certain common denominator
Yeah.
that everybody has.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
And-
like whether you're a genius, a billionaire, it's like you break it all down, and at some point you're going to see that no matter who this person is, they have the same stupid problems as everybody else.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, and that's why I wanted to bring that up, and I'm glad I could cheer you up because usually I tear you down and make you feel bad about yourself. So today I made you feel good about yourself. So we're gonna end it here.
I just think it's funny that Stephen Hawking had women problems.
Yeah.
It's just
So let me do a song of the day. I did your song of the day last week, and I think we're gonna do. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna do Eddie Hazel. Do you know who Eddie Hazel is?
no.
Eddie Hazel was the guitarist.
Eddie Van Hazel.
Eddie Van Hazel. He was the guitarist for the Funkadelic, Parliament Funkadelic. And he was the guitar player on the song Maggot Brain. You've heard Maggot Brain.
Oh yeah.
Right? He was the one who did the glorious solo on Maggot Brain. Okay? Now, why haven't you heard of Eddie Hazel before?
Why haven't I heard of him?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because Eddie Hazel did so many drugs that they said he had maggots in his brain, and that's what they named the song after. They named it after him. And he died. He basically went the Keith Richards route. I'm going to do every single drug and go straight into the grave. And I think he was dead at 42.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But he did a solo album that was actually pretty good, and I want to write about it on the blog. He did a cover song of California Dreaming that you would not even recognize.
So how long ago did he die?
Oh, geez, 1978, 1982. But yeah, I think he did the cover in 1977. And I just think back in 1977, I was listening to Hall & Oates. Excuse me, and whatever other top 40 was on the radio. You see what I'm saying? And now I'm like going back and I'm like, there was a lot of great music. And not disco. I'm not going back to disco. I'm saying there was a lot of great music like that you did not hear. And that's why I'm like, you know what? We're going to go back and revisit Eddie Hazel. So, and Ted's laughing. You weren't listening to Eddie Hazel, but you were listening to Maggot Brain. You listened to it at midnight.
No, I heard it, yeah.
So, all right, rest in peace, Stephen Hawking and Eddie Hazel. That'd be quite a party, the two of them up in heaven or the other place.